Yeah, good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for joining me today. This is our first Q&A Zoom meeting for the fall 2022 PDC Pro class. And today we're going to obviously have a brief introduction. As well, we are going to take a look at a couple of things. We're going to look at lesson one, kind of do an overview of lesson one, as well as I will take you on a little bit of a journey on the PACE platform here and just show you where there are a few resources that you might want to check out as the class starts to unfold. And it does take a little bit of, I admit that it does take a little bit of time to get used to the platform here, but hopefully I can show you a few things that will help streamline your process. So I think what I'll do, first of all, is just share my screen here. And we're going to take a look at the lesson one assignment. And I'll probably just spend, 20 minutes or so going through this lesson and sort of an overview of the platform. And then I know there's a couple of questions that have been placed in our Google document question sheet. So we're going to look at those, and then we can certainly have a good chat and see if anybody has any questions from the floor here or from whatever you want to call it. So yeah, first of all, welcome, and thank you very much, everyone, for joining in today and being part of the class. It is quite an exciting PDC, exciting for the instructors as well, because we get not only to see all of your work and provide you with some feedback for that, but we get this opportunity every 2 weeks to dive into a Q&A session, and I really enjoy it. Let us take a quick peek at maybe what we'll do is we'll do an overview of the platform first. So a couple things I'll point out to you that might help you along here. When you log on to the platform, your screen might look a little bit different, the menus that are here. But one thing I would check out is, especially for those who want to utilize this course in a professional manner, you want to do some more design work, or potentially, if you go to the modules section here, and there's a couple of really valuable parts here. I mean, there's some obvious information that's of interest. But what we want to do here is show you a couple things. And one of them is the sample student reports. These, I think there's 4 in here right now. And these are from previous students. And these are from students prior to the PDC Pro being developed and launched. So they are going to be very similar to the template file that you're working with. But these are wonderful, and I would encourage you all to just take a peek at this, and especially when you're going through the lesson that you're working on, you can get a little bit of an idea of how somebody else has put this all together and what kind of information that they've included. So this is a really good resource to fall back on. If we just back up here on that same page, so we're on the modules page. Another really interesting thing here is labeled as client interface. Okay, so if you go to this, you will notice there are a number of different embedded videos. One's from Andrew, from myself, from Kelda and Neil, who are instructors as well. And this interface walks you through our design process, right? So Andrew walks you through his design process. So basically from the start of a design to the finish. And I do that myself. And again, Kilda and Neil do that. And it's fascinating to look at these because everybody has a different process. And you may find this really helpful for yourself. Again, if you're interested in carrying on with this, there's some other really good resources in here. There's tutorials for graphics and software, mapping resource, the natural capital plant database access. So if you're interested in dialing into that, I would suggest you take a look at that. It's a great database. And then we go through these other lessons here. So there's those are pretty straightforward. So we're just going to back up here. So what you probably have found already or will find out fairly soon is when you go to post work or you want to interact with other students, you want to go to the discussion boards. So if we go to the discussion boards, you will notice it's kind of a two-step process here. We'll go to number 1. And then we have all these groups. Now you probably won't see that, but we end up on, well, whichever group you want to, but here we've gone into lesson 1. And then if I go to the top of the page and hit that discussion menu link, we'll see all of the discussion boards for our group here. And you'll see that we've got a general help board here. So if you run into any trouble that you want help on in the short term, you can post your question there, and I keep my eye on that. I'm not on this platform every day, but that is one discussion board I really keep my eye on. So you should get a pretty quick response by posting there. We have another discussion board called the Open Thread. So that's really for students here. If you want to talk about anything permaculture related with your classmates, then you can certainly post a topic or a question here. And it's quite easy to do. I'm sure most of you have figured that out. You merely press the reply button on the top, and then you can just type in your question or whatever you wish to say and hit post reply, and away you go. The other thing, we have all the Q&A Zoom links in a discussion board here. And we also have our Google document. So this is really helpful if we're coming up to a Q&A meeting and there are some questions that pop up for you and you're able to place them on the document. These get priority during the call, and doesn't often happen, but the odd question might require me to do a little bit of research for you. And so it's helpful if people do place questions here, but again, we're going to take some from the floor as we wrap up with some of this stuff a little bit later. Here's the link for the Zoom meeting, and then at the bottom we have all the dates that we're going to have Zoom meetings on. So this is also very helpful for people. And then below that, after today's recorded event here, we will post it. Basically what I do is I post it on my YouTube channel and then place a link here. So if you want to go back and look at anybody or any of the previous recorded lessons, you're quite welcome to do that. And you can do that again through my YouTube channel. And I'm not sure I can get to it on Chrome here easily. I'll show that perhaps to you in a bit. Actually, what we can do here, got a couple classes. Typically, we have 2 classes going at once, and we have a Q&A every Monday, so it's all alternative. Just trying to get to this. All right. So here's the Q&A meeting. So if we go to this one here, puts me on our YouTube channel, and away go. There we go. Oops. Now that's very odd. I must be on a different channel here. That's not mine. But anyways, you can search, and it's very odd. Should be able to find that. Well, I will update a little note about that. I may have inadvertently had two channels, so I'll have to check into that. So anyhow, that's where all of our links are going to be. And you can subscribe to my channel and you get a notification of that, but it doesn't really matter. They're all going to be here. And then what I do is I pin the discussion board for the week. So right now we have the introduction, and thank you very much for everybody who has chimed in. And I will definitely be going through and replying to all your introductions today and tomorrow if I haven't got time today. But the next discussion board that we're going to pin, of course, is for lesson 1. And let us take a look at that. And it's pretty straightforward. So we have most of the lessons will have 2 or 3 components to them. And especially the earlier ones, because these are fairly, fairly easy to put together and don't take a whole lot of time. So we can ask, we can have multiple elements in here. So we're looking at your personal survey, and then we're going to look at the design site and a little bit about your climate survey. And what I would highly recommend everybody do is utilize this PDC Pro template file. And I know there's a question on that Google document about this. So I'm just going to quickly go through here and give you a demo on how to download this and to utilize it. So if you click on that link, you're going to come to this master document, and it tells you to make a copy. So that's pretty straightforward. Over on the file menu, we're going to do that. We're going to make a copy of the entire presentation. And then we'd want to put a name on that. So often people will just put their name there, and you can then, if you have a Google Drive, you can place it wherever you want to. And then we just hit make a copy. And it is going to go through its little process here. Might be taking a little bit longer because of the meeting. There we go. So you can see the title. And maybe I want to edit this title because I don't want it to say that. So it's very easy to edit the title of your document, and away we go. So now I can start adding to this and sharing it. So you will notice there are a lot of tutorials around the edges of each page. So if I zoom out a little bit, they become more apparent. And there's some examples here, tutorials, excuse me, some notes. So I'd highly recommend, especially at the beginning of the course, you really take a look at this, because these are going to answer a lot of questions that you might have on how to edit or, put text in here, put images in here. Again, there's lots of great little tutorials at the top and around the edge of most slides. So this is just basically a table of contents, but even that has a tutorial. And then we get to your personal survey. And we're going to go back to viewing the whole thing here. So yeah, we just want a little bit about yourself, and then we want a little bit of information on the design site that you have selected or you're considering. This can be a little bit tricky for some people. There's First Nations or Aboriginal acknowledgement here with regards to the history of the land. The design site, we want to kind of go from macro to micro, and let's take a look at an example here. Some of these examples you may notice are in a slightly different order. But here we go. Here's this person's, the student's design site. So you can see we're kind of zoomed way back in Google Earth and starts to zoom in and take screenshots. And then here we are close up. And then the site itself, this person was able to put an approximate property boundary around the site, as well as some images from the ground. So these are super helpful. And there's a little key here showing the images and what direction they've been taken from. So that's a very nice item to add to this. And so this person's put lots of images in, and then we have a Q&A feedback column at the end of the assignment. So if a question has come up and you want me to answer it during my feedback, happy to do that. So you can place it right here. And let us go back. No, let's copy. There we go. So this is the copy that I just made. Now, this should be pretty straightforward given the support with the tutorials on each page here. So I'm not going to dive too much into that. If you do have trouble, please reach out and let me know, and I can certainly help you out with that. But the beauty of this course is we have this, it's a very large template file that you get to keep at the end of the course. But the beauty of this is it's so easy to share because it's a Google document. So when you've finished your, let's say, lesson 1, and you want to share that on a discussion board, it is quite easy. We just use this button on the top right corner where that says share. And we push that. And we will get another box here. And what I would recommend you do is under general access here, we're going to click on this and we're going to say anyone with a link. So anyone who has this link will be able to access the document. And you have a number of different settings here. You can have it so people can view. You can set it so people can comment. And you could also have people edit, and I wouldn't recommend that. You don't want to have anybody making adjustments to your work, but either viewing or commenting is great. Typically, what I recommend is if you go through a student's work and you'd like to comment on it, I think it's best if you can to comment within the discussion board rather than within the document itself. And that's just a personal, well, everybody can easily access it then. So when you have this set to whatever setting you wish, so viewer is great, then all you do is press the copy link button. And now I have the link copied basically on the clipboard of the computer here. And we could go to, let's say we were going to post this in lesson 1. And we go down and we just tap on this reply button, which it's a funny way they've labeled this, but this is how you would post your work, is via this top box here. So you could say, here's my work for the week. And there's a couple of ways you could do that. You could just post in the link, But what you'll find is people have to copy and paste that in order for it to be active. Or you could highlight some words and hit the link button here, and then we can place that link within the text. And if we hit post, you'll see down here, if I go and I click on that, I immediately get sent to it. Whereas this, I have to copy and paste into a new window. Okay. So I'm going to remove that. There we go. So once you've got your link, you would just press done on this, and then you're good to go. So every time you want to post into a discussion board, you would then, once you've done this once, you just go up and hit copy link, and then you have that link again that you can post. So that's pretty straightforward process. And the beauty again of this is you don't have to upload some large PDF file, and vice versa. Nobody has to download all that. So this is a much easier process and does allow for people to comment on the page itself. But again, I think making comments within the discussion board, just like we have here, there is some value to that. Okay. Everybody gets to see it, and this is a pretty active class already. We've got a lot of people commenting and chiming in with the introduction. So the more you interact, the more rich your experience can be, right? So we then go to one thing I will say, this page is for lesson 1, so it covers all of these different elements within it, and these are your references at the top, but all of these are get bundled into the lesson, and that's what we're going to paste below here, right? So that link to cover all those 3 portions of lesson number 1. The personal survey is pretty straightforward. The design site, I know I've got a few emails already about this, and design sites can be tricky if you don't have your own site to utilize. What you may want to do is consider, a public space, a friend's property, perhaps. There's no real what should I say? There are so many possibilities that are out there. I've certainly had a lot of students take sections of public parks and use that. I had one student that he was in New York and was in a high rise, and he did the roof of the high rise as his project site. So there are many, many different avenues here. And again, you could go with a farm, a larger acreage, and you can go into an urban, a smaller space. So believe it or not, these smaller urban spaces are harder, at least I find them harder. Larger spaces tend to be a little bit more forgiving. But yeah, so there's lots of options there, and there's a document that you can just click on, and there's some really good, tips here that you want to consider when choosing a design site. And one is that you can access the site, and when we get to lesson number 6, we're going to look at soil, and we're going to want to be able to take a soil sample and do a test hole and check the percolation of that soil, the infiltration, how quickly water infiltrates into that existing soil. And you want to try and choose something that has a building on it. Now, that's not always possible. You may have just purchased property that has no building on it, and you can certainly utilize that, no problem. What I would do is actually place a proposed building footprint on your base plan, which you're not worrying about in this lesson. That's the next one. But you'd end up putting a proposed building footprint, and then that will make it a lot easier to navigate some of the course here. So check that document out. If you're having any challenges checking it, finding an appropriate site. And then we have a climate survey as well. So we want to find out a little bit about your climate. And in this case, this person's put location, their climate type, the Köppen-Geiger climate classification, which should be fairly easy for you to find out. And we're not going to really dive into this during this course, but it is an interesting reference. So, if you come across another property that is also CSB, that there are some similarities. They're not going to be exact, but they have some similarities that give them some, well, I won't say common threads. But this particular classification runs down into Oregon, so that not the whole of Oregon, but parts of Oregon. And if you are keen on this, it's pretty easy. Let's say you did want a map of Oregon, and you can easily search for this, and there are some really interesting maps. So here's one of Washington State, and so the information is easy to access, especially in North America. They have some pretty detailed maps. So that's a little bit of a side note with that. And we want to know elevation, location, these coordinates. These are very, very helpful, because sometimes what I'll do during my feedback that I provide for you is I'll go on to Google Earth, and if I have an address or coordinates, it makes it easy for me to find your location. So that's really helpful if you can go through that. And let's see, what else have we got here? We got precipitation. So we're showing average annual precipitation here and temperature. And we want that annual average rainfall. I'm not sure where this person has dumped that. This is month by month, but you definitely want the average annual rainfall for your area and the 24-hour peak rain event. So the record rainfall event in your project site area, what that was, because that is going to become a valuable piece of information as we look at designing with water in mind. Yeah, and then you might find some wind information, more solar information. And then you'll notice that at the end of some of these assignments, we have what's called a SWOT analysis. So if we go to template file, there's tutorials on this, okay, how to fill it out and what it's all about. And it's actually a really good exercise to go through when we're looking at our project site, especially, and we're doing site analysis. So we're going through and we're, this first lesson, we have site analysis in here. We're looking at climate and some general images of the site. And, at the end of placing these all together, you're going to want to know, what are the strengths of the site? What are some of the opportunities? If we look at this student's work here, I don't think, yeah, This has changed slightly. We have a SWOT analysis at the end of the design site. So if our student here was looking at, what might be some of the strengths, you could say this is a rural setting with a fair amount of tree buffering the site. There seems to be some surface water that's getting diverted, and they have quite a bit of open, good solar exposure for, food production. So those are just a couple examples that you could, possibly consider when you're going through and looking at putting together the SWOT analysis. Again, it is a helpful exercise to go through. So I would encourage you to, and you get points for that. And that leads me to just looking at these other tabs that are on lesson 1. So you're going to have assignment resources. This is great. You may get stuck and find some information here that's really helpful. And one thing that is important, of course, here is how to copy what we've just gone through and how to share it. But one thing that is really important that you want to keep in mind is when you're doing your assignment, check in with the rubric, okay? Because this is how I will grade your assignment. If you don't have any information in your personal survey, well, then you probably won't. You'll probably get 0 for that. But if you go through and just make sure you're including what's being asked for, all is good. And it doesn't mean you've done it perfectly. And, I'd probably question that whole word perfect. But this will give you a really good idea of what should be included with each assignment. Okay, so that is something that you want to take into consideration when you're putting this together, because that does occasionally happen where a person won't look at the rubric and they don't include a key item that's being asked for. So that is basically lesson number 1. And I think that it is, again, pretty straightforward. Before we get on to looking at some of the questions today, does anybody have any questions regarding the first lesson at all? No? Yeah, I wouldn't think so. It is pretty straightforward. So if for some reason you do run into a bit of a challenge as you're going through any of the assignments, again, you can go up and go to the Q, the general help or questions discussion board and post it there. If you feel you really need to know as quickly as possible, I mean, that's a good place to place your question. If you'd rather it not be public, just go to the inbox icon here on the left, okay? And that is where you're going to say send a note. So if you wanted to send me a note, you'd have to select the course. And of course, you'd only have one here. I've got zillions here, but this would be this kind of in-house messaging system. So you just select the course and you can put a subject there. When you do select the course, you're going to be given, let me just see which one we got here. Okay, so we go to Pro, and then you're going to be given the option of who you're sending this to. Okay, so let's say we're sending something to Beth. So you start typing and you'll get a hint of who it is. Then you can put in the subject and then boom, your question, whatever it may be, if you're sending this to me, and then push send, and I get notified of it right away. Now, I may not be able to answer instantly, but I certainly will get back to you as quickly as I can with that. Now, we'll just go back up here. Yeah, so that covers lesson 1 and how to get a hold of me. The other thing you can do, because it's going on YouTube, I don't want to broadcast my email address, but in the welcome note that I sent out last week, I have included my direct email address, and you can use that as well for any questions. No problem there, so don't hesitate to do that. Let us take a look at some of the questions that are posted here. All right. So Ray had a question, and Ray sent me a note that said he could not attend the meetings, but he'll be looking at the recordings. So how do you share your work? Well, I think I went over that fairly clearly, and it is through the discussion board, and you're going to share that link on the Google document, and you'll want to press that and set this up so that, boom, if you want people to view it, you can just copy that link, and then that goes into the discussion board. That should be pretty straightforward. Let's see. Yeah, and again, if there's any question about that, we have that in the submissions tab on lesson number 1. So you can reference that for a little tutorial on how to share. All right, so hopefully that helps you out, Ray. And Brittany. Let's see, so slide 10, that's for an aerial. Can you zoom out? Yeah, well, that's a good question. So I'll just start Google Earth here, and we'll look at that as soon as it's loaded up. And what I would suggest, there are a couple of different versions of Google Earth. There's one that you can load within your browser. And, that's useful, but I do personally prefer the Google Earth Pro download, which is a separate application. It has a few more tools within it, and it's free, so it's a very powerful tool. Actually, I wouldn't recommend to use it in design work, but it does. It is a helpful tool, and we actually use it quite a bit in our work. Let me just switch over here. We're going to share the Google Earth screen. There we go. Okay, so again, we use it quite a bit for our work, but let's get to Brittany's question here. So we're just going to zoom in on a property here. Now, there's a few little tricks here that you might find really help you out. And one of them is when you zoom in using Google Earth Pro, it inherently puts you into a perspective mode. So you're elevated, but you're not directly overhead the site. And this might be interesting to observe, but if you're taking a screenshot, you really want to try and be directly overhead. So there's 2 things you can do to make that happen. One is, once you got this position where you want to, you just press the H key. Oh, sorry, the U key. Got that wrong. So the U key will bring you directly overhead in what we call a 2D overhead or a plan view. And that's traditionally what you want to take your screenshots with. The other thing is when you're moving around here, you may find that I can't get at that control. Hold on. You might find that, you know, you're inherently, when you start Google Earth, it's going to be showing north up, which is sort of a standard with mapping well, it's pretty much worldwide. Even in the Southern Hemisphere, they're using that. So again, we want to try and be not only overhead. So I've touched the U key, I'm directly overhead, but you press the N key and then boom, you're north up. So those are a couple of keys that can set you up for a screenshot quite easily. Yeah, Brittany was saying that when she zooms out, must be a larger acreage. So when you zoom out, you're losing resolution. And that's completely fine. You want to, so in this case, this is a 5-acre site. You know, we can get in pretty close and we can stay back quite a ways if we want to show what's going on around the site here. So I don't think you have to worry too much about that. If you want to show a little higher resolution, let's say around a structure, you know, you can certainly zoom in and do that, right? But for the exercise in lesson 1, we want to basically show the project site. We're not showing a base plan as of yet. You're going to learn about that in the weeks following. So that gives you a little bit of a walkthrough on Google Earth. There are a lot of online tutorials, so if you do get stuck, there's a lot of information there that you can access. And we'll go back to where we were here. Anybody have any questions about using Google Earth or Google Documents? Are we all good with that? Okay. So with Brittany's question here, you zoom out. Should you prioritize the whole overview? Yes, I would be doing the whole overview, and I would certainly with your project location, you want to try and show the perimeter in one go. So you want to put in a proposed property line and show that. And that's actually not hard. I can quickly show you that. So if I wanted to put in a property boundary, there are, in some instances, you can download the property boundary from a local district or town or state agency. Often they'll have a KMZ file for property boundaries. Not always. There we go. To do it manually, all you do is you go up and you would hit I believe it's the polygon tool here. It's not telling me it's the polygon tool. This brings up a box, and you don't do anything with the box, but you just start to click. Let's say I'm doing this property here. And if we zoom in and you get close and that vertice turns into a hand, you can click and move that. So then I'm not sure you can see this, but there's a box showing, a dialog box, and we just want the outline of the property shown, not infilled, and we're going to give it a color. And it can be a solid line. There we go. And then the dialog box, we just press OK and boom, we're done. We have that line in place. So that's often the way you'd put in a proposed property line that you're not able to get exact information on, but at least we know, right? We can look at that and go, okay, this is approximately what we're dealing with. Okay, so, and question number 2 here from Brittany. What information is dimensions? Okay, well, that's pretty easy. Let's go back to Google Earth because that's traditionally where we're going to find that. So if this property here was your project site, you can go to the dimension tool, which is the ruler up here. And we are going to set this to, well, let's say we set it to feet. And you can basically click on one corner and go to the other. So here we're at 660 feet in length. And then we're about 200 feet in width. So using Google Earth is quite easy to get your approximate dimensions. And I know it'll probably feel a little bit overwhelming having to learn all these new tools. But I must say that the Google Earth and Google document platform is quite a useful skill set to learn. So I would totally encourage everybody to do what they can. We're not going too deep with all this stuff. It's just really periphery with Google Earth. But it is a very useful way of sharing your ideas. And let me just for fun here, I will go back to Google Earth and just show you. For instance, this is what we use it for. We do farm design and along with other things, but in this case, we've been able to access LiDAR data in our area and using a couple of different softwares, create this relief map. And we can post that onto Google Earth, and then we can share this with our clients, which is wonderful. This also helps us create a slope map with a legend here, and we have contour information right here. So it's just a really helpful way to share ideas. We don't design using this, but we definitely share some of our ideas with our clients. Oh, I haven't done land capabilities yet. There you go. So the slope is very useful. Okay. Don't want to jump around here too much. So I think that sort of covers off our overview of the Q&A document here and lesson 1. Does anybody have any questions they would like to ask today? Feel free. You can either unmute yourself or put your hand up. And if not, no big deal. But you've got me for another 10 minutes if you do want to chat about anything here. So.
I've got a quick question.
Sure.
So I live in a small trailer park here in Corvallis, and I've got a small plot that I can work and use the land on as I'm here. But I also have family nearby that has a small farm where they have an orchard that's only using a small percentage of the property. So I've been kind of juggling the idea of using one of these two plots, either my own, which is obviously the most accessible, or theirs, which is not too far, and I think would give me a lot broader scope of what I could play with as far as concepts. It's sounding more from listening to you that it seems like I might get more from the course if I go with a larger property. I'm wondering if you would recommend that.
Well, I personally would, and that's personal preference. And part of the reason is, I think when everybody gets through this program, you'll realize that there's a huge importance placed on water within the landscape. So when we get into larger pieces of land, they traditionally will have more catchment potential. So whether that's off of buildings, off of hard surfaces, or just influence from adjoining properties, it can be, quite exciting to see the potential a site has. And typically larger sites tend to be that way. So if you have, your folks or your family has a site that's partially developed, that sounds like a pretty interesting project to dive into. And even when you get into orchard management and layout, looking at and we'll cover this later in another Q&A, but just looking at things like keyline cultivation patterns for orchards, which is quite a different approach to the typical grid layout. And that in itself is quite an exciting opportunity. And yeah, we'll get into looking at that in other calls, but I don't want to sort of dump too much on everybody's shoulder in the first Q&A. But I totally agree with you, Caleb. I would probably lean that direction myself, but it is personal preference. And if you feel better with the smaller site, yeah, I would use that. But the larger one will probably have more opportunity for you to take a look at. And yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. All right. James, do you have a question?
Yeah, it's a similar question in regards to the design site.
Yeah.
I have the choice of using essentially zone 1, 2, and 3 of Boulder's Farm, which is the house area right outside the kitchen garden, the garden area, and the orchard. And then there's also the rest of the property, which is on the other 110 acres of that.
Right.
So what should I start trying to design for the whole farm with the ideas of implementing the entire 135 acres?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. My experience with that is it's it's great to look at a project site as a whole, but often with large scale lands, such as what you're describing, 135 acres, most likely your work will be focused on a smaller part of that. But I would include the whole, right?
Okay.
And often these kind of zone 5 areas that are wilderness, they may have some assets associated with them that can really help your design. But in all likelihood, you won't be, implementing anything, too radical within those spaces. So yeah, I hope that helps you out. And yeah, okay, that's great. Yeah, I have actually a student in the summer class, so they're kind of just halfway through now, and she had a project that was over 100 acres, but it was mainly wooded, and it was basically an acre and a half, 2 acres that got cleared, and that's where the bulk of her focus is. Yeah, yeah. That's great. Yeah, happy to answer anybody else's. Oh, Carol, you go ahead. Sure.
Thank you. I have a large property like that, and one of the great challenges I'm feeling right now, I mean, this is our future homestead, is narrowing down like where to place the home, and there's all kinds of water opportunities, and things like the potential for terracing and or keyline design, micro hydro, all kinds of stuff. I've taken a PDC in the past, a couple actually, and I had these nice small, project areas that had already had a lot of constraints. They had homes on them. They had, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
this is just so boundless that I'm just, that's one of the reasons I signed up for the course. I mean, I've had 2 courses and I feel like I have the basics to be able to sort of sort out what opportunities there are, but I am just sort of overwhelmed with, you know,
Right.
yeah.
Well, that's a great question as well. And I think what you might find with this course that's a little bit different is we do chunk things out. So we're going to go step by step. We're first going to really dial into the site analysis. And we're going to look at each of these aspects. We're going to look at water. We're going to look at soils. We're going to look at plants. And to be honest, on larger scaled properties, probably one of the best tools that we use is the Regrarian platform. And it is a design protocol that Darren Doherty has put together in Australia. I'm sure you've heard of him.
Yeah.
He has an amazing educational hub and network that he's put together. And I've been involved in that for over 2 years now. So it's, for me, it's just a lifetime of learning. I love learning. And the advantage of, here, I'll just bring it up. I'm going to no doubt be referencing it a few times, especially with people that have large land base. So let me just switch my screen here. Oh, there we are. All right. So this is the Regrarian workplace right here. And this is a Facebook, well, workplace is a Facebook platform of sorts. And it is an incredible resource. Now, this is all about the platform itself. And it's based on P.A. Yeoman's work with the keyline scale of permanence. And these were the different, well, I should probably get a different illustration there. I don't think, let's see if that gets me where I want to go. There we are. So the scale of permanence is simply a very simple graph where you have more and less, and you have easier and more difficult. So at the top here, the most difficult item is climate. Although saying that, we as humans seem to be doing a pretty good job of adjusting that or affecting it. Then comes land shape and water and roads and trees and so on until we get to soil. So soil is the easiest thing to manipulate when we look at, when we compare. Much harder to redirect or change water flows. Imagine changing a river's flow versus, building and manipulating soils. The same as land shape, right? So it's based on it's the Regrarian platform is somewhat based on that, and it has 10 different steps here. And I guess where I'm going with this long-winded answer is in this design protocol, these are distinct layers, and you're going through each layer. So once you get to geography, a lot of the tone is set. And then you get into water, the access, where you put buildings. Look how far buildings are. There's the 6th layer. They're just not as important. And why? Because they're so easy. You can put them wherever you want. But if you put them in the wrong place, there's going to be repercussions, right? So the water and access are setting the tone for all of these things to come. And it's quite a brilliant design system. It really is. And, I think that the permaculture design protocol is, it's a fantastic system. And this is just yet another that is really, this is really geared for agricultural, larger land masses. And we use this protocol even on a smaller agricultural piece of property, like 10 acre. You're not going to be able to have quite the same broad strokes on a smaller piece of property, but this helps you go, this avoids the overwhelm, and it gets you looking at one step at a time. And that, in essence, is what we're doing with this course as well. We're going to be looking at one chunk at a time. Now, we're not going to go down the same path as Darren does with his work here, because coming out of Australia, it's all about trying to capture and store water, and that gets the priority. So once that has been established, you then can easily place roadways, and then obviously any buildings are going to follow that, and then these other items, soils, are quite a bit further down the list. But this surprises most people, because typically people buy a piece of land and the first thing they think about is, where am I going to put my home? And that should not be the first thing one thinks, necessarily. Where I live, we're on 5 acres. Previous owner put the house on top of a hill, and because we have a little bit of a view, which is wonderful, but the house is exposed to wind, which might be favorable in the summer, but in the winter, that sucks the heat out of our building, right? So there's a lot of reasons to be very mindful of where you put a building. Another advantage with the Regrarian platform, that building is probably going to be lower in elevation than your water storage, so that in the event that you have to suppress fire, you can potentially put together a gravity feed system that's not reliant on electricity or pumps, so that if your power goes out, which can definitely happen with wildfires, you still have water at your disposal. So it's a very clever system. And not to say that what we're about to undertake in the next 20 weeks isn't. It's great. This is just an extension of it. And I'm sure at some point there'll be another design protocol come on to the radar that would be of interest. But yeah, Darren's program is quite amazing, although it's, it is a big, fairly big financial investment. However, it's great. I very much enjoy that. So we kind of integrate all of the things we've learned, and even going back, I started in the industry probably 38 years ago, and it was in ornamental work in parks, right? So all of what I've learned there carried forward to today, although it's just kind of all been modified. So you'll probably find that with this course, you learn all of these tools, and you've been through a couple of courses already, Carol, so I'm sure you're very familiar with a lot of what's being presented in the course content. But I think you'll find this course a little bit different in that you get feedback on every assignment.
Right.
And I haven't mentioned this yet, but what I typically do with feedback is I will open up your Google document and I'll record feedback for you. So we go through your work, go through each sheet, and some sheets I won't give much energy to because there's no point, but others we really dive into. And that is, for most people, a really nice way to get their feedback. And then they can reference that whenever they want. You have lifetime access on the course, so the feedback will be there when you want it, if you need it in the future. And yeah, it's really, and we can use these Q&A sessions where we can go a little bit outside of the framework of the lesson itself. So for people some people want to start businesses, or they have a business underway that they want to fine tune, and they want to integrate more ecological minded work into their work. So we're here to help as much as we can. And yeah, my experience has been really positive. The outcome for most students, and it's all about how much energy you put in and what you get out of it. And if it's, I must say, there's a lot of content, as I'm sure you're all getting a feel of. And some of the assignments, the first couple aren't so bad. And then some of the assignments, they're going to take a little bit of time. Like just creating a base plan can be, a fairly intensive process. So, but the better your base plan is, the easier all the other steps are going to be. But we're going to talk about that in our next session. So I won't get too much into that, but just selecting that site, your project site, is a great first step. And then a little bit about yourselves and the climate. And again, those are things that we're going to reference. So the nice thing about the template file is, let's say you submit lesson 5 and myself or somebody else has a question about your climate, you can just scroll back to your climate assignment and go, this is the amount of rainfall they get, or this is the sort of climate classification they have. So yeah, the whole template file was upgraded a couple of years ago, and it's just gotten better and better in my mind. And quite often students will ask, is that the sort of thing you use with your designs? And it's like, no, absolutely no. We don't. When we produce designs, and we'll get into some examples later in our meetings, but we'll typically produce 4, 5, 6 different design sheets. We don't put out a template file that's like 100+ pages. We just couldn't do that. It would take us a long time. And but there are some key parts to this template file that you can take with you. And I think one of the things you're going to find that's coming up, well, the climate is key. And in the next lesson, we're going to look at the client interview. And that is absolutely an essential part of the whole process. If you're doing the work for yourself, that's somewhat easy. But if you have a client you're working for, you're really trying to work hard to extract all the information you can from them, because it's not your landscape, it's theirs, and you're trying to bring all your tool sets together and execute a design based on what their needs are and what they're trying to achieve on their within their landscape. And that's really paramount when we get into farm design, because there's a big section on just creating your own holistic context. What do you want your life to look like? How is this all going to play into that? If you bought a farm, and trust me, we've had clients where this has happened. They're not farmers. They bought agricultural land, and but they like having time off and going away in the summer, and and those two worlds don't meet up too well, right? So certainly in the winter, you got downtime, but during the growing season, you know, you're awake, you know, you want to really be focused on your operations. But that's enough of me ranting, not ranting. Yeah, does anybody else have any other questions before we go today? I think, Beth, you had your hand up, but I don't know if maybe I answered something for you already or. Oh,
Can you hear me okay?
yes.
Okay. I am looking at public space. So I really don't have property. I don't have many friends who have property either.
Sure.
Pretty much urban dweller. So
Yeah.
and I want to use a space that's big enough. Like that's the other concern that I have is that, you know, the people that I do know, they have backyards or something along those lines. I kind of want, I think it sounds like to get more bang for my buck out of this course, it would probably make more sense to go something bigger than
Mm,
that. So I'm looking at like a public park
sure.
that actually has a community garden already in it. I guess my question is, if I'm going to do something public, is that going to be an issue as far as not being able to really get the skill set for the client interviews? Or I don't know what I'm going to know as far as information on the site itself if I do something that's public, I guess is my question, besides what's like public access knowledge about it.
Well, that's an excellent question. There would be, you know, there's going to be parts of your, you know, going with a public space. You're quite right in identifying that it could be tricky to run through that client interview. However, you know, that's going to be one of the constraints you have if you're going to utilize a public space. Now, you might be able to contact and speak with somebody within, say, that park system, a supervisor, and explain what you're doing. And I wouldn't put too much on that, right? So you may not be gaining interviewing skills necessarily because your client is really the population of the place you live,
Right.
given it's a public space. So you could interview people that are, say it's a community garden, you could interview people that are involved in that and what they would like to see in terms of improvements or changes. The biggest thing is placing a structure.
Mhm.
So that's what you'll want to try and do. And it could be any structure, right? It could just be a covered barbecue area or a meeting place or something like that. That's sort of ground zero in terms of human activities. So if you can get to that point, which is pretty easy, it's just really drawing a rectangle on Google Earth where it makes sense. But that's I've had many clients do public parks, and sometimes it's just a public park and they've decided, oh, we want to create, you know, a community garden here. Or in one instance, it was a public space that had a small community garden and they were planning on expanding it and increasing rainwater collection and, you know, doing some things that weren't part of the smaller version that was actual on that site. So I think it would work out well for you, Beth. It'll just be a little bit different. Yeah. And in some ways easier because that dynamic of the client dynamic can be tricky. Especially when you're beginning to design and you have these ideas and the client might say, no, I don't want to do that. I know some students have run into challenges where their client, you know, didn't want to compost anything on site. They don't want any compost on their property. So that makes it, you know, a little bit challenging to build soil. Just means they have to import all their amendments. But, you know, things like that can happen. So it's a really good question, but I think you'd be fine. Yeah. Okay. Well, we're about quarter after. Does anybody have any other questions they'd like to throw out before we call it a day here, or? No, we're all good. Okay. Well, thank you very much for joining me today. It's great to see a nice big group, and I'm looking forward to working with all of you in the next 20 weeks, and I'll certainly look forward to seeing your assignments next Monday. And typically I will do a bunch of marking on the Monday. So after this meeting, I'm going to grade some papers from the other class that we have going. But I do a lot of it on Monday and Tuesday. And so if for some reason you're late submitting, don't worry too much. I usually pick that up later in the week than any, stragglers, so to speak. But try not to get too far behind. I know it inevitably happens, life happens, and people's attention get pulled in other directions. But if you get more than a week behind, it can get tricky. And then if you get more than 2 weeks behind, it can get really hard to make up that. Now, the one nice thing is we do have a break after lesson 5. So that is a little opportunity to catch up if that is needed. But yeah, if you can stay on course, you'll probably find the whole experience is way more pleasant, and you'll get some meaningful feedback when you need it. Sometimes we have students that'll submit multiple assignments right at the end of the course, and they're not going to get the feedback that they potentially could have, right? So yeah, anyways, it's been a pleasure, and look forward to seeing your work next week. And thank you very much. And thank you, Beth. Thanks everybody for joining me today. So you take care.